The Beast Within, a park ranger's tale of survival and discovery.
I am someone who is aware of the dangers that can happen to you in unknown territories. But sometimes, these dangers can seem impossible or unexpected. This began on a typical Friday afternoon when I was on patrol in the park. People were looking for good spots to hike and camp, and everything seemed normal until I received a report of a wild animal attack on the far side of the park. I rushed to the location and found an injured person stuck in a ripped and torn tent. As I tried to help him, I could hear heavy rustling of leaves somewhere nearby, leaving the location. I knew that something dangerous was lurking in the woods, and it was not a bear. I quickly drove the injured man to the ranger station and called for an ambulance. While waiting for the ambulance, I questioned the man about the attack. He told me that there was something lying within the woods that attacked his tent, and it was not a normal animal. I realized that this was a serious matter and called for backup. As the night fell, I decided to drive over to the second section of the park to investigate further. However, as I was crossing the bridge, it suddenly began to collapse. I was trapped in my car, and I could see the beast charging towards me. It was enormous and had razor-sharp teeth and claws. I tried to honk the car to alert my comrade, but it was too late. The beast started attacking my car, and I could feel the agony of each blow. Blood was pouring out of my leg, and I was in excruciating pain. I knew that I was going to die if my comrade didn't arrive soon. With my last breaths, I prayed for my comrade to find me, and seconds later, I saw a bright light reaching towards my crashed car. I heard gunshots from my comrade's car, which startled the beast. Luckily, my comrade arrived just in time to save me. If he had come a minute late, I would have been a dead corpse. I was rushed to the hospital, and my leg was fractured, and my body was weak. But I was grateful to be alive. I couldn't believe that a wild beast had attacked me in the park, and it wasn't even a known species. From that day on, I realized that not all dangers can be predicted or avoided, and sometimes, the unexpected can be the most terrifying. After the attack, I spent several weeks recovering in the hospital. The doctors were amazed that I survived the ordeal, and they told me that it was a miracle that I was still alive. I couldn't stop thinking about the beast that attacked me. It wasn't like anything I had ever seen before. I tried to describe the beast to my colleagues, but no one had ever heard of such a creature. It was almost as if it didn't belong in our world. I became obsessed with finding out what it was and where it came from. I spent countless hours researching and studying every possible creature that could have been responsible for the attack. I even consulted with experts and scientists from around the world, but no one could identify the beast. As I dug deeper, I began to uncover a dark and sinister history of the park. I found out that many years ago, a group of scientists had been experimenting with genetic modification and had created a monstrous creature that was designed to be the ultimate predator. However, the experiment went horribly wrong, and the beast escaped into the park, where it had been living undetected for years. The scientists had covered up the incident, and the park authorities were unaware of the danger that lurked within their boundaries. I was determined to capture the beast and bring it to justice. I knew that it was only a matter of time before it would attack again, and this time, it might not be so lucky. I rallied my colleagues and put together a plan to capture the beast. We spent weeks tracking it and setting traps, but it was cunning and elusive. It seemed to be one step ahead of us at every turn. Finally, one night, we cornered the beast in a remote area of the park. It was a fierce battle, and many of my colleagues were injured, but we managed to subdue the beast and bring it back to the lab for further study. The scientists were shocked that the beast had been alive all these years and were eager to study it further. However, I couldn't shake the feeling that something else was going on. I knew that we couldn't trust the scientists, and I feared that they might try to use the beast for their own purposes. In the end, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I destroyed all the data and samples, and I released the beast back into the wild where it belonged. It was a risky move, but I knew it was the right thing to do. Years have passed since that fateful night, and the park has been transformed. It's now a place of beauty and serenity, and the dangers that once lurked within its borders are now a distant memory. but I'll never forget the terror that I experienced that night and the lessons that I learned. The world is full of unknown dangers, and sometimes, the most terrifying things are the things we can't even imagine. After the incident, I decided to retire from the park service. I had seen too much and experienced too many horrors to continue in that line of work. Instead, I decided to become a freelance writer and travel the world, documenting my experiences and sharing my stories with others. One day, I received a call from an old colleague who told me that something strange had been happening in the park. People had been disappearing, and there were reports of strange noises and sightings of an unknown creature. My curiosity was piqued, and I decided to investigate. When I arrived at the park, I found that it had changed a lot since my retirement. It was no longer the peaceful sanctuary that I remembered. Instead, it was overrun with tourists and thrill seekers, all looking for the next adventure. I decided to conduct my investigation under the guise of a journalist, interviewing park rangers, scientists, and locals. However, what I found was even more terrifying than I could have imagined. The beast that I had encountered all those years ago was still alive and had been breeding. There were now multiple beasts, each one more ferocious and deadly than the last. The park authorities had been covering up the incidents, and the public was unaware of the danger that they were in. I knew that I had to act fast before it was too late. I contacted my old colleagues, and we put together a plan to capture the beasts. We spent weeks tracking them, studying their behavior, and setting traps. Finally, we managed to capture one of the beasts and brought it to a secure facility for further study. What we discovered was shocking. The beasts were the result of a rogue genetic experiment that had been conducted by a group of scientists who had been expelled from the scientific community for their unethical practices. They had been breeding the beasts in secret, using them for their own twisted purposes. We knew that we had to act quickly to stop them. We raided their laboratory, destroyed their equipment, and put an end to their monstrous experiments once and for all. The park has since been restored to its former glory, and the beasts are no longer a threat. However, the memory of that experience still haunts me. It taught me that there are forces in this world that are beyond our control, and that we must always be vigilant against the unknown and the unexpected.